Matija Chop, 1797 to 1835, was a linguist, literary critic, and the founder of Slovenian literary history, literary theory, and comparative literature. He was also the first Slovenian librarian. He was born on the 26th of January 1797. He attended primary and secondary school in Ljubljana, followed by a 3-year study of philosophy in Ljubljana and Vienna. After he returned from Vienna in 1817, he decided to take up theology. Throughout his studies, however, Chop was reluctant to serve as a priest, and in 1818 passed the requisite exam to become a secondary school professor. He taught classical languages in Reka, 1820 to 1822, and in Lvov, 1822 to 1827, where he spent his final 2 years as a student lecturer. After he returned to Ljubljana, he continued teaching for some time until he was named the head of the Ljubljana Secondary School Library in 1830. For many years he focused his efforts on organising the library. He wrote and maintained catalogues and systematically organised library materials, wrote catalogue entries and regulated the inflow of books. Matija Chop is thus considered the first Slovenian librarian. The highest award in the field is named after him, the Chop Diploma. Matija Chop met his tragic death in 1835 as he drowned while bathing in the Sava River. Matija Chop was the most educated Slovenian of his time. He spoke 19 languages and was a great scholar. He was an expert in classical as well as in medieval, Renaissance and Baroque literature. Chop also followed contemporary European Romantic literature. He was an expert in the works of renowned writers Dante, Goethe, Scott, Byron, Manzoni and Mickiewicz were among his favourite authors. He was a romanticist by conviction and strove to harmonise content and form in literature. With these characteristics, he influenced his friends and acquaintances, in particular Franz Prešeren. Under Chop's tutelage, Prešeren focused on romantic lyrical forms and romantic classicism. Chop was the force behind a poetry almanac called the Kranjska Čpelica, a small bee from Kran, the aim of which was to attract the educated classes to the Slovenian language. From 1828 onwards, he collected biographical and bibliographical material on Slovenian literature to be used for the history of the Slavic language and literature by Šafarik. Chop added a few critical entries, in addition to intelligently explaining the Slovenian folk song structure to the reader. Thus Chop became the first Slovenian literary critic and literary historian. His most important work is a thesis titled The Slovenian Alphabet War, which was written in the German language. In the thesis, he rejected the inept spelling introduced by Franz Metelko in the Slovene language. Chop also rejected the conservative linguistic and literary views of his opponents and developed a new cultural political program. Despite publishing only a few works, Matija Chop played a decisive role in the development of Slovenian culture, in particular by leaning strongly towards European examples and influencing Prešeren. Prešeren often acknowledged the exceptional importance of Matija Chop and wrote an elegy in the German language titled To the Memory of Matija Chop, as well as Baptism at the Tsarevitsa dedicated to Chop in the opening sonnet. Prešeren also wrote the inscription on Chop's tombstone. The restoration of Matija Chop's birthhouse took place between 1990 and 1994. Due to humidity and improperly laid foundations, the newer part of the house collapsed during the construction works. It had to be rebuilt, including the roof, which was reshaped as a crest. The furniture was entirely renovated, as well as the floors and wooden ceilings. The house's Gothic windows and portal were restored. The renovated building houses a permanent collection about the life and works of Matija Chop, as well as the seat of the Tourist and Cultural Bureau of Žirovnica.